and I'll keep it hush.
You know, one of the things that makes our country strong is our institutions. No matter how bad things get in this country, we have a basic structure that ensures a functioning democracy. We can disagree on policy, but we do so within the bounds of order and respect for the system. Otherwise, it all falls apart. I'm not going to dwell on the decorum of the House here today, other than to say, we are not going to allow stunts like this to stop us from carrying out the people's business. Why do I call this a stunt? Well, because it is one. Let's just be honest here. Here are some facts. Yesterday, the House Appropriations Committee considered its bill for Homeland Security spending. At the committee, Democrats offered in committee an amendment offering the gun measure they say they want. That amendment failed on a bipartisan basis. So just yesterday, the Democrats offered this gun measure they claim they want, and it failed on a bipartisan basis in committee. There was a vote. It was in the committee through regular order, and the vote failed. That's a fact they didn't want to talk about. Here's another one. If Democrats want to vote for a bill on the floor, there's a way to get one. It just takes 218 signatures on a petition, and then they can have a vote. It is that simple. That's how the House works. It's a well-known process. But they're not doing that. They are not trying to actually get this done through regular order. No, instead, they're staging protests. They're trying to get on TV. They are sending out fundraising solicitations, like this one. House Democrats on the House floor. Your contribution will go to the DCCC, $15. This one says, try giving us 25 bucks. But if you want, you can send us $50, $100, $250, $500, $1,000. Because look at what we're doing on the House floor. Send us money. If this is not a political stunt, then why are they trying to raise money off of this? Off of a tragedy?
We need to get these weapons of war off the streets.
Well, these are weapons of war.
Stop making it easy as possible for terrorists to buy assault weapons.
We had an assault weapons ban.
Reinstate the assault weapons ban.
We have seen the devastation that these military-style weapons cause.
Let me say something to every political hack pretending you know an AR-15 from a double-barreled shotgun in the wake of the Orlando terror attack. Stop talking. Every word not only exposes your ignorance, but your utter contempt for ordinary Americans trying to survive in an age of terror you still won't fully recognize. Hillary Clinton says weapons of war have no place on our streets and that we need to ban AR-15s immediately. Unlike Hillary, I've actually used an AR-15, but fully automatic. I was a SEAL for 12 years. Now I train average everyday Americans to protect themselves and their families. And for the vast majority of people I work with, there is no better firearm to defend their homes against realistic threats than an AR-15 semi-automatic. It's easy to learn and easy to use. It's accurate. It's reliable. And I guarantee if the Founding Fathers had known this gun would have been invented, they wouldn't have rewritten the Second Amendment. They would have fortified it in stone. Because they knew the only way for us to stay free was by having whatever guns the bad guys have. This firearm gives average people the advantage they so desperately need and deserve to protect their life, liberty, and happiness. But it isn't just the anti-gun politicians attacking our rights. With every broadcast, the media proves how ignorant and desperate for ratings they truly are.
Do we need AR-15s to hunt and kill deer? Do we need them to protect our families?
Look, Gretchen is a great broadcaster, and I'm glad she's on the side of freedom on most Second Amendment issues. But the fact of the matter is, she simply does not understand what she's talking about. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. And when it comes to defending your family, what does it say to you when I, a veteran Navy SEAL, someone who trains on every conceivable firearm platform, as well as trains in hand-to-hand combatives, someone who's more prepared for and capable in a firefight than almost every American alive, turns to the AR-15 to defend my family? Choosing to defend your home with an AR-15 is a common sense choice that tens of millions of Americans are making. And our neighborhoods and communities are safer for it. Let's run through some of the latest attacks and see how banning so-called assault weapons would have turned out. California already bans assault weapons. That didn't stop San Bernardino. No ban on ARs or any guns would have stopped the Boston Marathon bombing. ISIS's well-coordinated attack in France wasn't deterred by the country's strict gun control laws. Brussels' gun ban did nothing to stop terrorists from killing. But every single one of those tragedies ended with police officers carrying AR-15s, rushing to the scene as fast as possible. Hillary's solution to stopping terror attacks is to ban the very gun that stops terror attacks, and she calls that common sense. Why would you want to ban the gun that you pray for police to show up with? Here's a common sense solution to stopping Islamic terror. Law-abiding citizens prepared to deal with the imminent threats we face. Hillary Clinton's prepared. She knows ARs are a powerful defense against radical Islamic terrorists. That's why she's been surrounded by guards armed with them for the past 3 decades. AR-15s are fine for Hillary and her family, but average Americans who watch the news and feel genuine fear for their safety and their family's safety, she wants to deny them the level of protection she insists upon herself. I fought this enemy face to face for 12 years. I know how they think, and I know the hatred that burns inside them. I urge every law-abiding American to take measures to defend yourself. Arm yourself. Get the proper training. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Call upon your politicians to get rid of the dangerous lie of gun-free zones. Demand your national right to carry and use it. This threat is real. Our leaders are either incapable of or unwilling to protect you. And the AR-15 is one of the most effective tools available to protect yourself and your family. Embrace your freedom. Buy one if you want to. Get trained and learn how to use it. Your safety is in your hands. And thank God we have the Second Amendment. Right now, there's someone in America who wakes up in the morning and starts working just like you. Think of the week before a huge job interview or a big presentation. Think about how much work you put in to make it perfect. He's doing the same thing, except it isn't for weeks. In some cases, it's generations of dreaming, planning, and working. 50, 60, 70 hours a week in anticipation of the moment he's been waiting for his entire life. His job is to disrupt freedom by killing you, your family, and our fellow Americans. He knows he gets one shot, and it has to be perfect. He wants maximum chaos and maximum fear. He needs the news media to replay his work for years to come. He's a radical Islamic terrorist. I spent 12 years of my life hunting down people like him, and I know exactly how they think. And I know they're looking at shopping malls because they've already done it. That's exactly why he's looking for gun-free zones in states and cities where politicians have reduced our Second Amendment freedoms. He wants to produce mass chaos, mass panic. He wants to immediately assume control over everyone in the building. So of course he's only going to consider malls that prohibit his targets from carrying firearms. As he walks through nearby shopping malls, he's looking at the exits. He wants them to be few and far between, hard to find in a panic and easy to block. He wants lots of open area, high ground, and places to channelize people. Most important, he wants unsuspecting and an unprepared crowd. In order for his plan to work, he's counting on everyone in that mall being completely and utterly unprepared. Think about this. You're at a mall with your kids on a busy Saturday, picking up clothes for your family's summer vacation. As you wait in a long line to check out, you and your kids laugh and smile. You'll be at the beach in a few weeks. Out of nowhere, you'll hear shots fired. A few seconds later, screams. Your mind tells you what's happening, but you still try and convince yourself it isn't real. But the shots get louder and the screams multiply. People begin to realize what's happening. Panic spreads and chaos erupts. Kids get separated from their parents. The elderly are pushed to the ground. The teenager behind the checkout counter is frozen in fear. You still have no idea where the shots are coming from, but you see an exit sign. Tunnel vision sets in. Your heartbeat increases, and now you feel a shortening of breath. You think you've escaped, but then you realize the shots and screams are getting louder. You're surrounded. He's planned this in advance. He's covering the exits. He's gonna kill you. The people who want to restrict your right to bear arms will call this fear-mongering. They'll say it almost certainly will never happen to you. Maybe it won't, but it will happen to someone. And what if that someone is you? And what if it's your family? Both as a society and as individuals, what are we doing to prepare for it? More importantly, what are we and our leadership doing to prevent it? Deal with reality as it is, not as we wish it were, or face the consequences.
After the Islamic terrorist attack in Orlando, it didn't take long for Democrats in the Senate to filibuster for, you guessed it, gun control.
I've had enough of the ongoing slaughter of innocents, and I've had enough of inaction in this body.
We know he carried an assault-style weapon.
Our thoughts and prayers are no longer enough.
When you attack one American, you attack us all.
Senator Ted Cruz, frustrated by his colleagues, unloaded on their avoidance of the actual problem.
Yesterday, we saw a political show on the Senate floor. Democrat after Democrat standing for hours, incensed, not at ISIS, incensed, not at radical Islamic terrorism, incensed that Americans have a right to keep and bear arms. This is political distraction. This is political gamesmanship. And I think the American people find it ridiculous.
I believe that every country has the right to defend their own country. Every man has the right to defend his own wife and children and home. And I also believe that right should triumph over evil. And so I don't have anything against guns, because guns in and of themselves don't kill people. People kill people. So a gun is just like a plant or a tool, you know, and you can either do good with it, which is to protect and nurture humanity and mankind, or destroy. And I'm here to nurture and protect people.
Now, I think your own country, the United States, has a very complicated relationship with guns, because on one hand, it's almost perceived as a symbol of freedom protected by the Second Amendment, but on the other hand, it also created specifically American form of violence, mass shootings in schools and universities. So I wonder, where do you stand on the issue of gun control in the United States?
Well, first of all, I believe in the Second Amendment and the Constitution more than anything in the world. And I think that Adolf Hitler, for example, when he wanted to annihilate the people of Germany, the first thing he did was take away their guns. And the rights to bear arms wasn't just to protect the people from foreign invaders, it was to protect them against evil governments and anyone that would violate their inherent rights as a human being. So I believe in the Second Amendment, and I believe that, I hate to say this, a lot of these mass murders and all this funny stuff that's going on, I believe a lot of this is engineered.
And yet,
basically what I said is that when tyranny occurs traditionally around the world, they try to disarm the people first. And that's exactly, what happened in Germany. In the, mid to late 30s, they started a program of disarming the people. And by the mid 40s, look at what had happened. And it's happened in a number of other countries as well. Daniel Webster said tyranny would never occur in America because the people are armed. So there's a reason that we have the Second Amendment. And it doesn't mean that I'm not happy to look at ways to keep these tragedies from occurring as long as they don't interfere with the Second Amendment.
I guess the thing most talked about in the country today, and I'd be interested in your opinion, is what we do about guns.
Well, can't get rid of guns. You know, that's, you know, so what are the alternatives? You know,
what do we do?
Guns don't go away. It's a Second Amendment right, obviously. So guns aren't going to go away. Violence isn't going to go away. It's a human failing, I guess, and has been for thousands of years. You know, somebody's always wanted to...
Cain killed Abel.
Yeah, somebody's always wanting to take your stuff, you know, or play their power over you in some way, and that's just a human failing. So, you know, taking people's right to protect themselves from bad people that would do that is not something you can do. You can't take away their right to do that.
What about armaments like machine guns or guns that, things that you can kill 12 people in one setting?
Yeah, well, those aren't legal in our country. You know, machine guns, automatic weapons aren't legal in our country. Yet that's not going to stop a bad guy from turning it in, getting a semi-automatic weapon and turning it, you know, adapting it so it can fire multiple rounds.
But the society can't give up, right?
No, obviously not. But remember the bank robbers here in Los Angeles? 2 bank robbers, heavily armed. They had body armor all over themselves. They had machine guns. And they were outgunning the police officers at that time. I remember watching that on television. It was horrifying. The bad guys somehow turned their semi-automatic weapons into machine guns. So bad guys with bad ideas are going to do bad things, and that's something that we have to try to prevent. You know.
Well, I'd give up my gun when everybody else does.
And is that
doesn't that make sense? Well, doesn't that make sense? I mean, if you were to, if there were guns here, would you want to be the only person without one?
So do you carry guns routinely at home? I mean, you have a gun at home?
Yeah, it's legal in the United States. It's part of our Constitution. You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny. Not to hunt. It's to protect yourself from the police.
And do you see any link between that and these sorts of incidents?
No. Nah, not really. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wants to kill people, you know, they don't need a gun to do it.
Makes it easier though, doesn't it?
Not really. You can use, you can strap explosives on your body. They do that all the time.
So when there's the inevitable backlash of the anti-gun lobby as a result of this incident, as there always is.
Well, that's not going to change anything in the United States.
No.
The United States is based on guns. You know, like KRS says, you'll never have justice on stolen land. So it's not going to change.
But you've had some remarkable statements that I've listened to and said, that's powerful. You've talked about the need of this country to pay attention to where we're headed, down a path that really is the equivalent of I think you've used the term, John, civil unrest.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we're in a situation where obviously at this hour we're being, the American people are being forced to do something they don't want to do. We're witnessing a slow and steady takeover of our true freedoms. We're becoming a socialist nation, and Obama is causing civil unrest in this country. And now we see the government taking over banks. We see the government taking over car companies, insurance. We're being told what cars we can drive, how much we can make. Well, I say that they're taking away God's first gift to man, our free will. No man, no matter what his title, even if he's President of the United States, has the consent of God to decide that he's God.
You said something to me earlier that I thought was very powerful. You quoted Thomas Sowell, who I think is one of the most brilliant minds in America today.
Yes, he is.
And something that he said, do you have, because I want to, you have it. Because I think it was
Suddenly,
very powerful.
It appears, has said this African-American writer, what they are trying to do is create an America very unlike the America that has existed for centuries. The America that people have been attracted to by the millions from all over the world, the America that many generations of Americans have fought and died for. The thing associated with America, freedom, is precisely what must be destroyed if this is to be turned into a fundamentally different country to suit Obama's vision of the country and of himself.
That is a powerful statement. Thomas Sowell, a great thinker and writer. Right. John, I want to say thank you for coming and being here today, especially for your courage.
I love you back. You folks are great. Thanks for sticking around. Let me be clear on one thing. Blue lives matter, police lives matter, cops' lives matter. As my good friend Sean Hannity is fond of saying, let not your hearts be troubled. Barack Obama will exit the White House for the very last time. And finally, his reign of terror over your freedom, over your Constitution, and over your right to keep and bear arms, his reign of terror will be over. Very few topics in our human discourse spark as much emotion, passion, or vilification as the subject of guns in America. Now ask yourselves why. Why is the Second Amendment treated like the bastard child of the Bill of Rights by academia, the liberal mainstream media, and liberals in the political establishment? It's not about reducing mass murders, suicides, or street-level violence. Heck, it isn't really even about gun control, folks. It's about power, political power. It's all about government control over our lives. These anti-gun bigots on the left realize that in order to grow a more centralized government, they have to defeat several powerful citizen-based organizations. These anti-gun zealots realize that to win a political argument, you need two things. You need a common enemy and a common language. And to the anti-gun left, the common enemy is the National Rifle Association and you, its freedom-loving members. While the common language of the AGI, you know who the AGI is, right? The anti-gun idiots. See, to the AGI, the common language is that guns should be outlawed and only the government should have them. Gun-supporting advocacies like the NRA are our lobby on Capitol Hill and in state legislatures guarding our Second Amendment right 24/7, 365. You see, in politics, if you're not part of a special interest group or if you don't have a powerful lobby, you can't get a seat at the table of power to participate in discussions. As sheriff, I took an oath to uphold and defend the United States Constitution, all of it. The Constitution does not come a la carte, it is all inclusive. When we start down that road of picking apart the Constitution to fit a certain leftist political agenda, we are headed toward a very dark place called government tyranny. While there are so many attacks on our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, what's interesting is that this is a recent phenomenon. For most of our nearly 240 years as a constitutional republic, the right to keep and bear arms was never seriously questioned. It has only been in about the last 30 or 40 years that this inalienable right has been challenged. We have been conditioned by freedom-loathing gun haters away from gun ownership and even gun possession. In 1775, Here in the New World, a group of renegades we call the Founding Fathers, the framers of the Constitution, understood the threat posed by a strong central government. So they created this idea of self-rule around a document that strictly limits the power of government and places the power with you, the people, the individual, and the states. You see, they understood that government tyranny was a natural result of government, so they included safeguards. They knew that only an armed citizenry could keep government in check. Patriot Thomas Paine said it best. He said that arms discourage and keep the invader and plunderer in awe. And they preserve order in this world as well as property. He went on to say that horrid mischief would ensue with the law-abiding deprived of the right to use them. Folks, it's a historical truism that in the 20th century, Nazi Germany's use of firearm registration laws to confiscate weapons from Jews rendered them defenseless from attacks. And Switzerland's tradition of ensuring that every man was armed with military weapons kept at home, ready to organize as a militia of total resistance, played a significant role in dissuading a Nazi invasion during World War II. And then there is the issue of the right of the people to keep and bear arms for self-defense. This, as you know, is a natural right. Survival is the first law of nature because man has an inherent desire to survive. Sometimes that means fighting off criminal predators. Don't be misled by phony sloganeering like common sense gun legislation or smart guns. There is nothing smart about what they are up to, as you and I both know, that none of this crap will reduce violence, suicides, or mass shootings. The people who believe this aren't working on anything smart. In fact, they are stuck on stupid about what causes gun violence, suicides, and mass shootings. Ben Franklin said, "We are all born ignorant, but one must work hard to remain stupid." When he said that, he had to have this gun-grabbing group in mind. Slavery is government tyranny. Government knows all too well that the first step to enslaving people is to disarm them. Folks, my ancestors fought hard and shed blood for the right to keep and bear arms for self-defense, and I am not going to cede that right back to the federal government or any level of government for that matter, and neither should you. Don't ever let anybody tell you to outsource your safety to the government. Defend yourselves in ways Folks, defend yourselves in ways more advantageous to you, and then dial 911. Your life may depend on it. Handle that firearm, practice and become proficient with it. Know its capabilities and its limitations. Take time to learn the safe handling and storing of the weapon. A gun in the hands of law-abiding citizens is not a threat to society at large. It is a threat only to the criminal. It is also a threat to an ever-expanding federal government hell-bent on obliterating your right to keep and bear arms.